The air was thick with the scent of mildew and abandonment, yet one could almost taste the remnants of the grandeur that had once permeated its halls. What had led to this decline? What stories lay trapped within the peeling wallpaper and dusty floors? As the last rays of light flickered out, the mansion seemed to pulse with a life of its own, urging the curious to peer into its depths. Yet, for every revelation, there was a price that might just be too steep to pay. A distant sound, perhaps a branch snapping or a whisper carried on the wind, snapped the tension. The atmosphere shifted, thickening as if the mansion itself were aware of the presence of an intruder. Shadows stretched and yawned, filling the corners of the grand foyer where portraits of long-gone residents hung like silent sentinels. Each image, with its frozen expressions, seemed to watch the visitor, guarding secrets that were never meant to be unveiled. A sudden gust of wind rattled the shutters, causing them to bang against the frames like a warning. The air grew colder, and the sense of unease deepened. This was no ordinary structure. It was a repository of history, the triumphs and tragedies of those who had once walked its halls. Would the truth be as haunting as the atmosphere suggested? Would the mansion reveal the depths of its sorrow? As the last light faded, the mansion stood against the backdrop of a starless sky, a silhouette of despair and grandeur. It beckoned, yet repelled, enveloped in an enigmatic embrace that stirred both curiosity and fear. The stories it held were ready to be awakened, yet the question lingered: was anyone prepared to face what lay hidden within? The tension was palpable as the night deepened. The mansion loomed larger than life, an imposing figure on the landscape, a silent guardian of its own tragic tale. It was a house built on dreams, yet it had become a mausoleum for lost hopes and ambitions. The breeze whispered secrets as it wound through the broken railings and cracked marble floors, inviting those brave enough to listen. A flicker of movement in the periphery caught attention, and for a heartbeat it seemed as though the mansion itself had exhaled, releasing its held breath. The shadows deepened, shifting like a living tapestry. There was something here, something waiting to be uncovered. But with mystery comes danger, and not every tale ends in triumph. As the last remnants of dusk surrendered to the night, the mansion stood resolute, resting in its own desolation. What awaited inside? The echoes of laughter, the cries of despair, or perhaps something more sinister? As the darkness wrapped around the estate, a sense of urgency filled the air. The stories of the past were ready to surface, yet the mansion would only divulge its secrets to those who dared to seek them. Would anyone emerge from the shadows, ready to confront the legacy of the $100 million mansion left to rot? Or would it remain shrouded in silence, a monument to the tragedy that no one talks about? The mansion, a sprawling testament to early 20th century architecture, was conceived during a time of unbridled ambition and wealth. It was the year 1912, a time when America was on the brink of a new era, characterized by the rise of industrialization and the excesses that accompanied it. The mansion was commissioned by the enigmatic financier William Hawthorne, a man whose name was synonymous with both fortune and controversy. Hawthorne was a self-made millionaire, having amassed his wealth through a series of shrewd investments in railroads and real estate. His success story was one of grit and cunning, yet it was also marked by whispers of questionable ethics and ruthless competitiveness. This duality fueled not only his fortune, but also the need to create an abode that would reflect his status and aspirations. The mansion was to be more than just a home. It was a symbol of success, a monument to his victories, and a fortress for his family. The architectural design of the mansion was inspired by the grand estates of Europe, particularly those found in England and France. Hawthorne hired the renowned architect Charles Becket, known for his ability to blend classical elements with modern sensibilities. The result was a striking fusion of neoclassical and Gothic styles, with soaring columns, intricate moldings, and expansive windows that allowed sunlight to pour into the grand hall. The mansion featured multiple wings, a sprawling ballroom, and a library that held the promise of countless stories within its shelves. As the foundation was laid and the walls began to rise, the estate became a gathering place for the elite. Hawthorne hosted extravagant parties where the rich and powerful mingled, sharing laughter against the backdrop of a lavishly adorned ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceilings, casting a warm glow over the polished marble floors, while orchestras serenaded guests with sweet melodies. The mansion bloomed with life and laughter, echoing with the chatter of the city's most influential figures. However, beneath the surface of opulence lay an undercurrent of tension. The Hawthorne family, while appearing to be the epitome of success, was riddled with secrets and rivalries. William's ambition often led to conflicts with his wife, Margaret, a woman of elegance, but whose dreams were overshadowed by her husband's insatiable drive. She had once cherished the idea of a family steeped in love and unity, but the relentless pursuit of wealth strained their bond. This tension often seeped into the very walls of the mansion, transforming the vibrant halls into a stage for whispered arguments and silent disagreements. As years passed, the mansion became a witness to both triumphs and tragedies. The Hawthorne children, raised in luxury, grew up under the weight of expectations. Their lives were carefully curated to project an image of perfection, yet beneath the facade, each child grappled with their own struggles and aspirations. Secrets were exchanged in hushed tones, and the mansion became a repository of hidden desires and unfulfilled dreams. Despite the challenges faced by the family, the mansion stood resilient, a testament to the legacy of its creator. It was not just a structure of bricks and mortar. It was a living entity, harboring the hopes and sorrows of those who called it home. The walls absorbed every joyous laugh and anguished cry, creating an atmosphere thick with unspoken memories. As the decades rolled on, the opulence began to diminish, and the vibrancy of the mansion dulled. The world outside shifted, and the social dynamics that once elevated the Hawthornes began to wane. The Great Depression cast a shadow over many wealthy families, including the Hawthornes. Financial struggles, once a distant concern, crept into their lives like an unwanted guest. The lavish parties that once echoed within the grand ballroom dwindled, replaced by silence and uncertainty. In stark contrast to its earlier glory, the mansion began to reflect the family's decline. The once pristine gardens became overgrown, the fountains lay dry, and the laughter that filled the halls faded into echoes of the past. The grandeur that had once defined the estate was now overshadowed by an air of melancholy, as if the very essence of the building mourned the loss of its former inhabitants. Yet, as the family faced adversity, they remained determined to uphold their legacy. William Hawthorne, clinging tightly to his ambition, endeavored to maintain the mansion despite the mounting financial pressures. He sought ways to revitalize the estate, pouring what little resources he had left into renovations and repairs, believing that restoring the mansion would somehow restore their family status. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Tragedy struck when a devastating fire engulfed one of the estate's wings, claiming not only a portion of the building, but also the lives of several staff members. The incident sent shockwaves through the family, unraveling what little cohesion remained. Guilt and grief hung heavy in the air, forcing the Hawthornes to confront the consequences of their ambition. The mansion, once a sanctuary, became a haunting reminder of their failures and losses. As the years turned into decades, the mansion slowly fell into disarray, mirroring the disintegration of the family itself. Each member drifted further apart, consumed by their own struggles and regrets. The laughter that once filled the air was replaced by the whispers of ghosts, the echoes of a family that had once thrived within those walls. Now, as the camera pans away from the crumbling facade, a question lingers. What truly became of the Hawthorns and their grand estate? The mantle of mystery deepens, drawing viewers in, beckoning them to explore the secrets that still linger within the shadows. The mansion, though silent, seems to breathe with the weight of its history, waiting for someone to uncover the truth behind its once glorious past. As the wind rustles through the broken windows, one can almost hear the mansion whispering its secrets, inviting the brave to venture deeper into its forgotten halls. Before diving further into the haunting legacy of the Hawthorns, the audience is encouraged to engage. If you're captivated by this story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're tuning in from. Your thoughts are vital in helping us share these tales of mystery and history with the world. As the wind rustles through the broken windows, one can almost hear the mansion whispering its secrets, inviting the brave to venture deeper into its forgotten halls. Before diving further into the haunting legacy of the Hawthorns, the audience is encouraged to engage. If you're captivated by this story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're tuning in from. Your thoughts are vital in helping us share these tales of mystery and history with the world. The mansion, with its grand architecture that once epitomized luxury, had become a canvas of shadows, painted with the remnants of a family whose legacy had long since faded. Behind the ornate doors and under the vast, echoing ceilings lay the lives of the Harrington family, whose story was woven into the very fabric of the home. Their presence had been palpable, each member contributing to the tapestry of wealth, ambition, and secrets that enveloped the estate. The patriarch, Charles Harrington, was a man of significant influence in the early 1900s. With his sharp mind and relentless drive, he rose from humble beginnings to become one of the wealthiest industrialists in the region. The mansion was a manifestation of his success, built not only as a home, but also as a statement of his power. Its sprawling rooms, adorned with exquisite decor and fine art, hosted lavish parties where the elite gathered to bask in the glow of Harrington's fortune. Yet, beneath the glittering surface, the family's life was riddled with tensions that few could see. Charles was married to Eleanor, a woman of grace and beauty who found herself trapped in the gilded cage of their life. Though admired by society, Eleanor yearned for authenticity and connection, often retreating to the gardens for solace. The lush grounds, once vibrant and alive with laughter, became a refuge for her, a space where the weight of expectations could momentarily lift. It was in these hidden corners that she nurtured her dreams, longing for a world beyond the mansion's walls. Their children, however, were the ones who truly inherited the complexity of the Harrington legacy. The eldest, William, was groomed to take over the family empire, a role that suffocated him. The pressure to uphold the family name surged like a tidal wave, washing away his dreams of art and travel. In contrast, his younger sister, Margaret, was a fierce spirit, determined to carve her path despite the constraints imposed upon her by societal norms. The siblings often clashed, their fights echoing through the halls, a stark contrast to the laughter that once filled the space. As years passed, the Harrington family faced mounting challenges. Charles's business ventures, once flourishing, began to falter. Whispers of scandal and financial mismanagement crept through the town, threatening to tarnish their esteemed reputation.
Eleanor's desperation en apariencias letera si crecía, her once vibrant spirit dimming con each passing day. The mansion, once a thriving hub of social activity, became a stage for their unraveling, each room filled with the weight of unspoken grievances and hidden truths. William's relationship with his father soured as he struggled with expectations. The pressure to succeed imbued every interaction, leading to arguments that left emotional scars. As Charles grew increasingly consumed by his ambition, Eleanor retreated further into loneliness, leaving Margaret to bridge the growing chasm between them. The love that once bound the family began to fray, revealing the deeper fractures hidden beneath the surface. But tragedy was lurking, casting a long shadow over the Harringtons. It was the evening of a grand gala, an event that promised to restore the family's status among the elite. Guests arrived adorned in their finest attire, the mansion glowing with lights and laughter. Yet the atmosphere was laced with a tension that even the finest champagne could not dissolve. Underneath the facade of celebration, the Harrington family was teetering on the edge of disaster. As the night unfolded, a sudden storm rolled in, dark clouds obscuring the moonlight and sending a chill through the air. The guests, initially oblivious to the brewing tempest, danced and mingled, unaware of the impending chaos. In the midst of the revelry, a loud crash echoed from the upper floors, causing the music to falter. Whispers of concern rippled through the crowd. William, feeling a surge of dread, sprinted up the grand staircase, his heart pounding in his chest. At the top, he found the source of the disturbance. A fragile chandelier had fallen, shattering into 1,000,000 pieces, the remnants glistening like stars on the polished floor. His heart sank as he noticed something worse than shattered glass. Eleanor lay unconscious beneath the wreckage, her once lively spirit extinguished. The party turned into a scene of chaos as guests rushed to aid. William's world crumbled in that moment. The reality of their lives hit him like a freight train. The glamorous facade of the Harringtons shattered that night, spiraling them into a vortex of grief and blame. Eleanor's death marked the beginning of the end for the Harrington family. The mansion, which had once been a sanctuary of love and laughter, became a mausoleum of memories.
Charles, consumed by guilt and despair, withdrew from public life, his empire crumbling alongside his spirit. William, feeling the weight of his mother's passing, found himself spiraling into a deep depression, struggling to bear the mantle of responsibility thrust upon him. Margaret, left to navigate the chaos, was determined to restore her family's name, but the shadows of their past loomed large. The mansion stood silent, a witness to the unraveling of a legacy. The echoes of laughter that once filled the grand halls were replaced by whispers of sorrow and regret. It became a prison for the living, each room a reminder of the love lost and the ambitions shattered. The elegance that had once defined the Harringtons transformed into a palpable sense of dread. As the days turned into weeks, the family, now fractured, began to drift apart. Secrets that had long been buried surfaced, highlighting the complexities of their relationships. William's resentment towards his father festered, while Margaret sought solace in the shadows of the mansion. The once thriving estate fell into disrepair, mirroring the disintegration of their family ties. The mansion, with its echoes and shadows, held tightly to the stories of the Harringtons. What lay within its walls was a testament to the fragility of life, the power of ambition, and the haunting memories of a family that had once reigned supreme. As the weight of their collective tragedy pressed down, the air grew thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions, leaving the future uncertain. In the heart of the mansion, the secrets of the Harrington family awaited, ready to unfold as the shadows deepened and the night closed in. Would anyone be brave enough to confront the past, or would the echoes of their lives continue to linger in the shadows, unacknowledged and unforgotten? The air was thick with anticipation as the once vibrant halls of the Hawthorne mansion slipped into an unsettling silence. It was in this very place, where laughter once echoed, that a tragedy unfolded, forever altering the fate of the grand estate. The year was 1946, and the world was still recovering from the ravages of war. But William Hawthorne's legacy was about to crumble under the weight of scandal and betrayal. The first hints of trouble appeared with the sudden disappearance of Alice Hawthorne, William's youngest daughter. A spirited woman full of dreams, Alice had always been the joy of the mansion, her laughter filling the rooms with warmth. She was a fixture at the social gatherings, charming guests with her quick wit and grace. But on that fateful summer day, Alice vanished without a trace. Rumors began to circulate among the social elite, whispers that raised eyebrows and sent shivers down spines. Some claimed she had eloped with a dashing young artist, while others suspected foul play, citing her recent involvement in a controversial affair that had become the talk of the town. As days stretched into weeks, the search for Alice intensified. William, who prided himself on being a man of control and power, found himself grappling with an emotion he had long buried: fear. The mansion, which had once served as a vibrant backdrop for celebrations, now felt like a tomb. The grand ballroom, once alive with music and laughter, became a hollow space filled with the echoes of fading memories. Shadows danced in corners, and the once gleaming chandeliers seemed to dim, as if mourning the absence of the soul who brought them to life. In the midst of the turmoil, secrets began to unravel. Alice's disappearance unveiled deep cracks within the Hawthorne family. Her older brother, Gerald, once the apple of William's eye, had become increasingly erratic in his behavior. Known for his sharp tongue and ruthless ambition, he had always felt overshadowed by Alice's light. With his sister gone, Gerald saw an opportunity to seize control of the family fortune. Tension simmered as he openly challenged his father's authority, questioning William's decisions and demanding a larger stake in the family's business ventures. The mansion, once a symbol of unity, became a battleground of accusation and animosity. The summer of 1946 also brought with it an unexpected scandal that would further tarnish the Hawthorne name. Rumors of financial mismanagement surfaced, with whispers of embezzlement echoing through the corridors. It became clear that all was not well in the realm of Hawthorne Industries. William, who had built his empire on the foundations of trust and reputation, found himself facing investigations that threatened to strip him of everything he had worked for. The press caught wind of the situation, and headlines splashed across newspapers like wildfire, igniting public scrutiny. Once revered, the Hawthornes were now subjects of gossip and ridicule. As the family grappled with internal strife and external pressure, a tragic twist struck the mansion on a stormy night. A violent thunderstorm raged outside, the wind howling like a banshee, rattling windows and shaking the very foundations of the estate. In the midst of the tempest, Gerald, fueled by desperation and a sense of betrayal, confronted William in the grand study. The tension between father and son reached a breaking point, leading to a heated argument that echoed through the hallways. In a fit of rage, Gerald accused William of ruining their family's legacy, placing the blame for Alice's disappearance squarely on his father's shoulders. The argument escalated, voices rising above the thunder, until, in a moment of uncontrolled fury, Gerald stormed out of the study, vowing to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within, and as the lightning illuminated the mansion, it revealed the fractured relationships that had been festering for years. William sat alone in the dim light, staring at the portrait of his beloved daughter, feeling the weight of loss pressing heavily on his heart. Hours later, the storm subsided, leaving behind an eerie stillness. As the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, the mansion stood solemnly, its beauty marred by the tragedy that had unfolded. Gerald's absence was felt keenly in the days that followed, but the Hawthorne family was not finished with sorrow. Just days later, the news broke that Gerald had been found dead in a car accident on a lonely road, leaving behind a legacy of unresolved anger and heartbreak. The official report ruled it an accident, but whispers of suicide and foul play lingered in the air, further shrouding the family in an aura of mystery. The combination of Alice's disappearance and Gerald's tragic end shattered the Hawthorne family. William, once a figure of prominence, was now a man haunted by shadows, his power stripped away by grief and loss. The mansion, once a vibrant symbol of success, became a reflection of despair. Rooms that had seen grand celebrations now felt cold and empty, each creak of the floorboards echoing the ghosts of a once thriving household. As the years rolled on, the mansion fell into disrepair, mirroring the disintegration of the Hawthorne legacy. Stories of the family's misfortunes spread like wildfire, and soon the estate was seen not as a symbol of grandeur, but as a cursed relic of a bygone era. Visitors who dared to approach the mansion spoke of an unsettling presence, claiming to hear whispers in the corridors and feel cold drafts in the still air. The shadows that had danced playfully during lavish parties now loomed ominously, as if the very walls of the mansion held the weight of its tragic history. And so, the grandeur of the Hawthorne mansion fell into the clutches of time, its beauty overshadowed by the tales of tragedy that surrounded it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dilapidated estate, one could not help but wonder, what other secrets lay hidden within the crumbling walls of this once storied home? The whispers of the past beckoned, inviting the curious to delve deeper into the mysteries that clung to the air like a fine mist, waiting for the right moment to reveal their truths. The mansion, once a beacon of wealth and prestige, now stood as a monument to history's neglect. Time had not been kind to the Harrington estate. Peeling paint clung to the once grand walls like shedding skin, and the gardens lay choked under a blanket of weeds, their beauty long forgotten. Yet whispers of its past lingered, especially the tales of the eerie occurrences that had come to define the property after its inhabitants disappeared from the world. In the wake of the Harrington family's tragic downfall, the mansion had become a shadow of its former self, yet it pulsed with an unsettling energy. The air felt thick, almost electric, as if the very walls held their breath, guarding the secrets within. Locals often spoke of strange happenings: flickering lights in the upstairs windows when no one was home, the faint sound of piano music drifting through the halls late at night, and the eerie feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. The mansion had become a ghostly attraction, igniting a curious mix of fear and fascination in those who dared to venture near. As the years passed, the estate changed hands several times, yet its reputation for the bizarre only grew. Each new owner seemed drawn to its grandeur, only to flee in fear or despair. They reported inexplicable events: cold drafts in rooms with no open windows, objects rearranging themselves overnight, and shadows that danced just out of sight. Some claimed to have seen figures in period clothing wandering through the halls, their faces drawn in expressions of sorrow.
Others spoke of a chilling presence that settled in the corners of the mansion, a weight that pressed down on their chests, making it hard to breathe. These legends of the supernatural were further fueled by the mansion's rich history. Each room seemed to echo with the laughter of parties once held within its walls, the clinking of glasses and the rustle of elegant gowns. Yet, amidst this vibrancy lay the tragedy of the Harringtons, a family entwined in a web of ambition, love, and unanswered questions that now lingered like ghosts. Investigators and paranormal enthusiasts would come equipped with their gadgets, hoping to capture evidence of the otherworldly. They would sit in the parlor, recording devices ready, waiting for something, anything, to break the oppressive silence. Many left disappointed, while others returned with tales that would chill the bones of those who dared to listen. One of the most notable stories was of Charles Harrington's study, a room that had become infamous among thrill-seekers. It was said that the air grew colder within its walls, even in the midst of summer. People claimed to have felt an invisible force urging them to leave, as if the very essence of Charles himself was warning them to turn back.
Investigators recorded strange anomalies, fluctuating temperatures, and inexplicable static on their devices as they spoke his name aloud. Some even insisted they could hear a low voice in the stillness, as if the late patriarch were voicing his displeasure over the state of his once proud home. Eleanor's garden, once a sanctuary of serenity, had taken on an eerie quality. The pathways were overgrown, twisting and turning like the haunting memories of the family that had once walked there. Visitors recounted feeling an overwhelming sense of melancholy, as though the very flowers wept for their lost mistress. On moonlit nights, when the shadows grew long, some claimed to see Eleanor's spirit tending the wilting blooms, her presence a bittersweet reminder of beauty lost to time. As these stories spread, the mansion transcended its physical existence, morphing into a cultural phenomenon. It was no longer just a home, it became a symbol of what once was, intertwined with the threads of despair and longing. The county even designated the estate as a historical site, hoping to preserve the haunting tales that surrounded it. But preservation came with its own set of challenges. Funding was scarce, and as the structure continued to deteriorate, so did the excitement around it. To bolster interest, a series of ghost tours were introduced, drawing thrill seekers from far and wide. Guides would weave tales of the Harrington family, detailing their rise and fall, and the strange occurrences that now defined the estate. Visitors would walk through the darkened halls, flashlights flickering over faded portraits, and hear about the last grand ball held in the mansion, which ended in tragedy. The moment when the family's fortune crumbled echoed through time, always lingering on the lips of those who dared to share the tale. Yet, for all the excitement, there remained an unsettling tension among the townsfolk. Some believed the mansion was cursed, a vessel for all the sorrow it had witnessed. Others felt a deep connection to the Harringtons, as if they were bound to the estate through time. They would gather near the gates, sharing hushed stories, their breath visible in the cool night air. Perhaps it was this reverence that kept the mansion from falling completely into ruin, as if the very spirit of the Harringtons lingered, holding the fabric of their legacy together. In this dance of legends and reality, the mansion stood resolute, a monument to the past and a keeper of secrets. The weight of its history lay heavily in the air, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Each creaking floorboard and whispering breeze carried within it the echoes of lives once lived, dreams, ambitions, heartaches, and ultimately the tragedy that had sealed the mansion's fate. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the estate seemed to awaken, its shadows deepening, preparing to unveil more of its mysteries to those brave enough to seek the truth. As night fell, the mansion loomed larger than life, an enigmatic silhouette against the starlit sky. The stories continued to swirl, and with them, the question remained, what truly lay hidden within its walls? Would the spirits of the Harrington family ever find peace, or were they destined to roam the halls of their beloved home, forever intertwined with the sorrow of their past? The answers, elusive and shrouded in mystery, awaited those willing to listen to the remnants of a life that once thrived in grandeur. And so, the mansion stands, still, quiet, and steeped in the stories of those who came before. Its fate remains uncertain, as does the legacy of the Harringtons, lingering like a whisper in the night. In this mysterious abode, the lines between the living and the dead blur, offering a glimpse into the past while leaving the future cloaked in shadows. The tension within the Hawthorne family thickened with each passing day, feeding the growing unease that clung to the mansion like a heavy fog. Gerald, who had long been consumed by jealousy and resentment towards Alice, now found himself at the center of the storm. His erratic behavior drew whispers among the servants, glances that spoke volumes as they exchanged knowing looks. The vibrant social events that had once filled the mansion with life gradually gave way to a suffocating silence as guests began to dwindle, unsure of how to navigate the tragedy that hung over the Hawthorne name. In the days following Alice's disappearance, Gerald's mood shifted unpredictably. Sometimes he would roam the halls aimlessly, searching for some trace of his sister, while other times fury would consume him, directing his wrath at anyone who dared approach him. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and prestige, now echoed with tension and fear. Shadows seemed to loom larger in the dimly lit corridors, and the once celebratory atmosphere faded into a heavy blanket of despair. As the investigation into Alice's disappearance continued, the town became rife with speculation. It was a small, close-knit community, and news traveled fast. Whispers of an affair, of betrayal, and even of darker secrets floated through the air like a chilling breeze. The Hawthorns had always held a position of power and reverence, but now that stature was crumbling. The family name, once synonymous with prestige, was now being tainted by rumors that threatened to unravel everything William had built. William, feeling the pressure of public scrutiny intensify, sought solace in his work. He threw himself into his business affairs, attempting to distract himself from the chaos at home. But the walls of the mansion, once a sanctuary, felt more like a prison, confining him with the memories of Alice's laughter that lingered like a ghost. Each room he entered seemed to whisper her name, and he could almost feel her presence in the air, a poignant reminder of what had been lost. One evening, as twilight descended upon the estate, casting long shadows across the manicured gardens, William gathered his family in the grand sitting room.
The flickering light from the fireplace illuminated their weary faces, reflecting the pain that had taken root in each of their hearts. He looked at Gerald, whose eyes darted nervously, betraying the turmoil within. Lillian, the matriarch, sat stiffly, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, as if afraid to let go of the last threads of control. "We must come together as a family," William began, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Alice is out there, and we need to find her. We cannot allow this darkness to consume us." But Gerald scoffed, the bitterness seeping through his words. "What do you know about darkness, father? You've always been blind to everything but your own success. Maybe Alice wanted to escape from this family, from you." The words struck William like a physical blow, and the room grew silent, the air heavy with unspoken pain. Lillian's eyes filled with tears, and she glanced at Gerald, her heart torn between love for her son and the anguish of losing her daughter. "We need to stay strong," she whispered, her voice trembling, "for Alice." But Gerald's anger was a flame, fanned by years of feeling like a shadow. Strong? What about the secrets that lie hidden in these walls? Alice wasn't the only one with secrets, was she? He turned, his gaze piercing. What about the things she knew, the things we all know? The accusation hung in the air, thickening the atmosphere in the room. William's heart raced, a dangerous mix of fear and anger flooding through him. He had spent decades building his empire, but in that moment he felt it all slipping away. The facade of the perfect family shattered, revealing the cracks beneath, and the truth of their collective guilt began to surface. As the night deepened, William decided to confront his son. He followed Gerald into the dimly lit library, where the faint smell of leather-bound books mixed with the mustiness of the aged wood. The flickering flames from the fireplace cast shadows that danced ominously along the walls, mirroring the tumult within their hearts. "You need to stop this madness," William declared, his voice steady yet laced with desperation. "Every accusation you throw only deepens the wound. We must find Alice." Gerald spun around, his eyes wide with rage. "You think I'm the problem? She's gone, Father, and you're more concerned about your precious reputation than the truth. What if she was taken? What if someone wanted to hurt her because of what she knew?" The words hung heavy in the air, a revelation that pierced William's heart. The possibility that Alice had uncovered something sinister sent a shudder down his spine. He had always known their lives were entangled in shadows, but to think that one of those shadows could have swallowed Alice whole was unbearable. The very foundation of the Hawthorne name was built on prosperity, but beneath it lay betrayal and ambition that had festered for years. William felt a chill creep into his bones as he realized that the mansion was no longer just a home. It had become a battleground for secrets, and one by one they were all being laid bare. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, a haunting lament that echoed the family's turmoil. With every gust, it felt as though the mansion itself mourned, its walls absorbing the sorrow and despair that had settled within. The once gilded halls, which had echoed with laughter and joy, now felt like a mausoleum, haunted by the ghost of a daughter who had vanished into thin air. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation brought forth no answers. The community, once supportive, began to turn against the Hawthornes, their whispers growing louder. The mansion, now a symbol of tragedy and scandal, became the subject of gossip-filled conversations at the local diners and cafes. William watched helplessly as the world he had built began to crumble around him, each brick falling away under the weight of their collective grief. The love they once shared as a family, now twisted and tainted, slipped further from their grasp, leaving behind only echoes of what once was. In the lingering silence of the Hawthorne mansion, the shadows deepened, and the web of secrecy that enveloped them tightened. The final threads of their lives were unraveling, revealing a tapestry woven with tragedy, secrets, and the haunting possibility that some tragedies might never truly be explained. The chilling tales surrounding the Harrington estate did not merely fade with time. Instead, they morphed into threads of intrigue that wove through the fabric of the local community. Those brave enough to approach the mansion often shared stories of sensations that defied logic: an oppressive weight in the atmosphere, sudden drops in temperature, and the faint echo of laughter that danced on the edges of silence.
Even the most skeptical of townsfolk felt a tingle of unease when passing by the towering gates, as if the mansion itself were a living entity, ever watchful, ever waiting. Investigators and paranormal enthusiasts flocked to the site, eager to capture evidence of the unexplained. Armed with cameras, ghost detection devices, and an abundance of courage, they ventured into the mansion's depths, hoping to uncover secrets long buried. Their nights were filled with anticipation as they set up equipment in the grand parlor, where the opulence of the past cast a haunting shadow over the present. Whispers of the Harringtons' lavish parties lingered in the air, yet now only the creaking of tired floorboards filled the silence. Those who braved the experience often claimed to hear the soft strains of piano music floating from the ballroom, a ghostly serenade that beckoned them closer to the heart of the mansion. One such investigation drew a particularly curious group of paranormal researchers, calling themselves the Spectral Seekers. Their reputation for uncovering the truths behind haunted locations preceded them, and they were determined to document their findings at the Harrington estate. Armed with state-of-the-art technology, they set up cameras in every room, hoping to capture any sign of the supernatural. As night descended and the moon cast a silvery glow through the cracked windows, they gathered in the parlor, recounting stories of their previous investigations and the phenomena that had left them awestruck. The atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation as they conducted their first EVP session, asking questions into the stillness, searching for a response from the beyond. "What happened to the Harringtons?" one of the researchers inquired, the words hanging in the air like a prayer. Silence enveloped them, yet just as they were about to dismiss the moment, a sudden chill swept through the room. The temperature dropped so suddenly that breath turned to fog, and the researchers exchanged nervous glances, their hearts racing. Then, faintly, the sound of a single piano note echoed from the distant ballroom, clear and haunting, reverberating within the walls. Curiosity and fear intermingled as they ventured towards the source, drawn by the inexplicable melody. With each step, the air thickened and the shadows appeared to lengthen around them. The researchers entered the ballroom, where an antique grand piano stood, its keys yellowed with age. It had not been touched in decades, yet there it was, playing an ethereal tune, as if the spirit of the house was welcoming them into its embrace. The flickering light of their flashlights caught glimpses of ornate chandeliers and faded opulence, remnants of a time when the Harringtons danced and laughed beneath this very roof. Suddenly, one of the team members gasped, pointing towards a figure standing in the corner of the room. They squinted into the dim light, and the figure seemed to shimmer. A woman in a flowing gown, her face obscured by shadows. The researchers froze, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they tried to comprehend what was unfolding. "Is this a trick of the light?" one whispered. But deep down, they knew better. It felt real, an undeniable presence woven into the very fabric of the mansion. As the figure turned slightly, an icy draft swept through the room, extinguishing their flashlights and plunging them into darkness. Panic surged, and they fumbled to turn on their devices, but the air felt charged, suffocating. In that moment, the piano continued playing, each note resonating with an urgency that seemed to command their attention. The researchers felt a compulsion to listen, to understand the message hidden within the haunting melody. Then, with a sudden crash, the music stopped. The figure was gone, leaving behind an overwhelming silence that pressed down on them like a heavy blanket. Heartbeats echoed in the stillness as they collectively exhaled, the weight of the experience settling deep within their chests. Had they truly witnessed the spirit of a Harrington? Was the mansion's history reaching out, urging them to uncover the truth? They spent the rest of the night comparing experiences, reviewing the footage they had captured. Yet the images were of the same worn rooms, no supernatural phenomena visible, only the haunting emptiness that pervaded the estate. Yet the chilling feeling lingered, a reminder of the inexplicable encounter they had shared. Days turned into weeks as stories of the Spectro-Seekers' investigation spread like wildfire through the town. Locals gathered to discuss the eerie occurrences and the potential of a ghostly presence still residing within the mansion. Over cups of coffee and during hushed conversations, the tales of the Harrington estate grew, transforming into urban legends. Some claimed the woman in the gown was Eleanor Harrington, forever searching for her lost family, while others believed the mansion held a darker secret, a curse that kept it tethered to its tragic past. As the years passed, the Harrington estate stood resolute against time's relentless march, a monument to the mysteries that entwined its walls. Each season brought change, yet the mansion remained a constant, a backdrop to whispers and fears. Ghost tours blossomed, and thrill seekers arrived in droves, driven by the blend of history and the supernatural. The estate became a rite of passage for those daring enough to explore the unknown, a place where stories of the past merged with the echoes of the present. Yet beneath the excitement lay an enduring question. What truly happened to the Harrington family? Was it merely a tragic end, or was there a deeper darkness lingering within the estate? The mansion, adorned with its peeling paint and overgrown gardens, continued to keep its secrets, a silent sentinel guarding the memories of a bygone era. The air remained thick with anticipation, as if every room held its breath, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover the layered tapestry of its history. In the stillness of the night, a soft piano note could still be heard, floating through the hallways, a ghostly echo of a time long gone, forever entwined with the legacy of the Harrington estate. The once opulent Hawthorne mansion stood solemnly in the fading light, its ivy-clad walls cloaked in shadows, whispering tales of grandeur that felt far removed from its current state of decay. The rich, vibrant colors of the past had dulled into muted hues, the once pristine white facade now tarnished with age, and the windows, once gleaming with warmth, now appeared as hollow eyes, gazing out at the world with a haunting emptiness. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by the chill of the evening breeze. As night descended, the mansion loomed larger, a specter of its former self, holding within its walls the weight of unspeakable tragedies and unresolved mysteries. Gerald's behavior had taken a turn steeped in torment, his existence now a labyrinth of grief and guilt, intertwined with a growing paranoia. The tension gripped him like a vice, squeezing tighter with each passing day. He wandered the halls, lost in a haze of memories, the once vibrant laughter of Alice echoing in his mind, a sound now painfully distant. Each room he entered felt alive with her presence, yet each corner whispered of her absence, amplifying his isolation. The servants, once a bustling presence, tiptoed around him, their hushed conversations laden with concern, as they exchanged worried glances, fearing the consequences of Gerald's unraveling state. As the weeks dragged on, the investigation into Alice's disappearance reached a fever pitch. The local authorities, baffled by her sudden absence, had combed the surrounding areas, their search seemingly endless. Gerald found himself on the edge of despair, unable to shake the guilt that gnawed at him. Voices in town spoke of darker inclinations, suggesting that perhaps Alice's departure was not as innocent as it had appeared. Rumors of betrayal and hidden affairs swirled in the air, tainting the Hawthorne name further in the eyes of the community. What had once been a symbol of prestige and wealth was now becoming a cautionary tale of envy and loss. William, too, felt the pressure weighing heavily upon him. He poured himself into his work, attempting to distract himself from the dark cloud that hung over his family. Yet the walls of the mansion, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and celebration, had transformed into a prison, a relentless reminder of what had been lost. Every creak of the timbered floors beneath his feet felt like a ghostly hand reaching out, a reminder that the joy of family gatherings and festive soirees had been replaced by a suffocating quiet that echoed through the vast, empty spaces. It had become clear to him that the very foundations of their legacy were crumbling, and there was little he could do to stop it. In the midst of the turmoil, the townsfolk began to share ghost stories about the mansion. They whispered of a haunting presence, a specter that roamed the halls, searching for something long lost. Some spoke of seeing a figure in white flitting through the windows at night, while others claimed to have heard soft sobbing emanating from the once great ballroom, where joyous dances had filled the air with music now silenced. Each tale, steeped in local lore, only served to deepen the mansion's curse, and the townspeople distanced themselves, wary of the misfortune that seemed to cling to the Hawthorne family like a shadow. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow across the sky, Gerald stumbled upon Alice's favorite room, the once bright and cheerful nursery. The room was untouched, the small bed neatly made, and her toys meticulously arranged as if waiting for her return. The sight of it sent a jolt through him, stirring a tempest of emotions. Rage, sorrow, and remorse coalesced within him, and he collapsed onto the floor, the weight of his actions crashing down like a tidal wave. It was there, amidst the remnants of innocence, that he finally faced the truth he had been avoiding, the guilt of jealousy, the burden of his neglect, and the haunting realization that he had pushed his sister away in her greatest time of need. In the days that followed, Gerald's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He began to isolate himself further, retreating into the mansion's dark corners, consumed by his internal battle. Shadows danced menacingly around him, whispering secrets only he could hear. It was as if the very walls had absorbed the anguish and despair that permeated the air, echoing the tumult within his soul. The mansion, now a reflection of his shattered psyche, became a labyrinth of despair, with each room representing a piece of his broken heart. As autumn deepened, the town held a vigil for Alice, an event filled with somber remembrance. The community gathered, lighting candles and sharing stories of the girl who had brightened their lives. Yet, for the Hawthorne family, the event was a painful reminder of their loss, marked by the absence of the one who had once brought them joy. Gerald stood among the crowd, feeling the weight of their stares, the judgment wrapped in their pity as they whispered among themselves. He could no longer bear the scrutiny, the shame that hung over him like a heavy cloak, and he fled from the gathering, retreating to the mansion that felt more like a tomb than a home. In that moment of solitude, Gerald made a decision. He had to confront the specter of his sister's memory, to accept the consequences of his actions. With trembling hands, he began to search for answers, delving into the shadows of the mansion, hoping to uncover the truth about what had happened to Alice. Every creak of the floorboards underfoot felt like a call to action, and as he moved through the halls, he sensed a growing presence, as if the very house was guiding him toward a revelation long buried. As days turned into weeks, the investigation continued, but there were no answers, only silence hanging in the air like a thick fog. Gerald, driven by a desperate need for closure, decided to host a gathering at the mansion, a last-ditch effort to bring the community together, to face the rumors and the whispers head-on. Perhaps, he thought, if they all came together, the truth would emerge from the shadows that had consumed them. The night of the gathering arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation and fear. Guests arrived hesitantly, their faces a mixture of concern and curiosity. As they entered the grand foyer, the heavy air wrapped around them, filling the space with an unmistakable tension. Gerald stood at the center, trying to appear composed, his heart racing in his chest as he prepared to address the gathering. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an almost ethereal ambience, as if the mansion itself was alive, holding its breath for what was to come. With a shaky voice, he welcomed the guests and shared his heart, his fears, and his hopes for finding Alice. The vulnerability in his words pierced through the heavy silence, and as he spoke, something shifted within the room. It was as if the mansion itself responded, the air thickening with an energy that was both palpable and unsettling. Whispers of encouragement mingled with murmurs of skepticism, and as Gerald shared his resolve to uncover the truth, a collective sigh swept through the crowd. In that moment, they were united by a common purpose, the darkness that had shrouded the Hawthorne name beginning to lift. However, as the night drew on, it became clear that the mansion wasn't ready to let go of its secrets. Unexplained sounds echoed through the hallways, whispers curling around them like tendrils of smoke. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, a sense of foreboding settling over the gathering. It was clear that the Hawthorne mansion still had stories to tell, stories filled with sorrow and regret, and perhaps, just perhaps, a glimpse of hope. The night ended with more questions than answers, but for Gerald, the journey had begun. He no longer felt alone in the fight to reclaim his family's legacy. As they dispersed, the mansion remained, a silent witness to the turmoil, a guardian of secrets that had yet to be revealed. Gerald stood on the porch, watching the last of the guests fade into the night. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying a sense of promise, a whisper of hope that echoed against the walls of the mansion, hinting that perhaps redemption lay within its grasp. The journey toward healing had just begun, and with it the prospect of uncovering the truth that had remained buried for too long.